Claire was finishing a long day at work when her phone rang. She almost ignored it, but the name flashing on the screen made her heart stop a thin. Her brother rarely called this late. She answered quickly, her voice worried. "Ethan, what's wrong?" For a moment, all she heard was his shaky breathing. Then his voice broke through, quiet and desperate. "Claire, I need you. I'm in trouble. I borrowed money I can't pay back, and they want it tonight." The words hit her like a storm. She pressed the phone tighter to her ear, pacing the length of her small apartment. "How much?" she asked, afraid of the answer. When he told her, she froze. It was far more than she could ever pull together in one night. Rent, bills, food, she barely managed her own life. Her brother had always been the strong one. The one who took care of her after their parents' messy divorce. She remembered him holding her hand on the first day of school, buying her ice cream when she cried over bad grades, cheering for her at every small victory. He was her protector, her anchor. Now he was on the other side of the line, sounding like a man about to drown. "I don't know what to do," Ethan whispered. "If I don't pay, they'll take everything. My car, maybe even my job." His voice cracked. "Claire, I'm scared." Claire's heart ached. She had never heard him admit fear. He had always hidden his struggles behind jokes and smiles. But now all the walls were gone, and she heard the frightened boy he used to be. She wanted to tell him everything would be fine, that she'd fix it somehow. But the truth pressed heavy on her chest. She had no way to get that kind of money. Her mind raced. She thought about what she could sell, but even if she sold every piece of furniture in her apartment, it wouldn't be enough. She thought about loans, but no bank would move that fast. Every idea fell apart as quickly as it came. And then, against her will, one name surfaced. Daniel Hayes. The thought of him made her stomach twist. She hadn't seen him in years, hadn't even said his name out loud. Daniel had once been Ethan's closest friend, practically part of the family. For Claire, he had been more than that. He was the man she had secretly loved since she was a teenager, the man she had watched from a distance while pretending her feelings didn't exist. But Daniel had gone on to build a life far away from them. He was successful now, running businesses respected in circles she only read about. He didn't owe her anything. And yet he was the only person she could think of who might actually help. She sat down on the edge of her bed, holding the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Could she really call him after all these years? What would he think of her reaching out only in desperation? The thought burned her with shame. But then she remembered Ethan's trembling voice. This wasn't about pride. This was about saving her brother. Claire ended the call with Ethan, promising she would find a way. She tried to sound steady, though her heart was pounding. As soon as the line went silent, she scrolled through her contacts, stopping at Daniel's number. She had never deleted it, though she had promised herself she would. Her finger hovered over the screen. One call could change everything. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and pressed the button. The line rang once, twice. She almost hung up. Then his voice came through, deep and steady, exactly as she remembered. "Hello?" For a second, she couldn't speak. She was 18 again, watching him laugh with Ethan in their kitchen, feeling invisible and yet impossibly drawn to him. She forced herself to breathe. "Daniel, it's Claire." A pause. She imagined his expression on the other side, surprise flashing across his face. "Claire," he said slowly, "I didn't expect to hear from you." Her throat tightened. She hated how small her voice sounded when she spoke. "I wouldn't call if it wasn't serious. It's about Ethan." The silence stretched, heavy and unspoken. She feared he would dismiss her, that he would tell her it wasn't his problem. But finally his voice came back, calm but firm. "What happened?" She explained everything in short, broken words, Ethan's debt, the deadline, the fear in his voice. She didn't ask directly for help. She couldn't bring herself to She simply laid the truth out, raw and desperate. When she finished, there was another pause. She held her breath, waiting for his response. "Meet me tonight," Daniel said at last. "Same cafe as before." Her heart leaped, not just with hope, but with something she couldn't name. She remembered that cafe well, the warm light. The quiet corner table where they had once shared conversations that meant more to her than she ever admitted. She whispered, "Thank you," but he had already ended the call. Claire set her phone down, her hands trembling. Relief washed over her, but it carried a tide of nerves with it. Tonight, she would face not only her brother's crisis, but also the man she had spent years trying to forget. And deep down, she knew this night would not just be about money. It would stir old feelings, open doors she thought she had closed, and perhaps change everything she believed about the past. With one call, her life had shifted. And as she slipped on her coat and stepped out into the cool night air, she felt the weight of what was coming. The night had only just begun. The cafe sat on the corner of a quiet street, its warm lights glowing against the dark Chicago night. Claire's heart raced as she walked toward it, her hands buried deep in her coat pockets. The cold air bit at her skin, but she barely noticed. All she could think about was Daniel. She hadn't seen him in years, and now, in the middle of her brother's crisis, she was about to face him again. When she pushed open the door, the bell above it chimed softly. The place looked almost the same as before, wooden tables, the smell of fresh coffee, the low hum of soft jazz in the background. And there, in the far corner, sat Daniel. He rose to his feet the moment he saw her. He looked older, but in a way that made him sharper, stronger. His dark hair was shorter now, brushed neatly back, and the suit he wore gave him an air of quiet power. Yet his eyes, steady and focused, were exactly as she remembered. "Claire," he said, his voice calm, almost cautious. She nodded, forcing her legs to move toward him. Sitting down across from him felt surreal, as if no time had passed and yet everything had changed. She tried to hold herself steady, but the years of buried feelings pressed hard against her chest. Daniel didn't waste time. "Tell me everything," he said, leaning slightly forward. His tone was businesslike, but his gaze held something gentler. Claire clasped her hands together to keep them from shaking. She explained quickly how Ethan had borrowed money from the wrong people, how the deadline was tonight, how desperate and broken his voice had sounded on the phone. She told the truth without dressing it up, because there was no point hiding the gravity of the situation. Daniel listened without interrupting, his eyes fixed on her. He didn't look shocked or angry. Instead, he seemed to weigh every word, absorbing it like a man used to solving problems. When she finished, silence lingered between them. Claire looked down, afraid to meet his eyes, afraid of what he would say. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. "I'll pay it," he said simply. Her head snapped up. "What?" "I'll cover the debt tonight." His tone was calm, as though it was the easiest decision in the world. Claire's chest tightened. Relief flooded her, but with it came guilt. "Daniel, I can't let you do that. It's too much. I don't even know when I could pay you back." He studied her, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Claire, this isn't about money. Not for me." Her breath caught. She didn't understand what he meant, and yet a part of her did. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You want to know the truth? I'm not helping Ethan for his sake alone. I'm doing it for you. Because when you called me tonight, I realized something I should have admitted years ago. I never stopped caring about you." The words struck her like lightning. She blinked at him, her mind scrambling. For years, she had carried a quiet love for him, hidden beneath the surface, locked away because he had always seemed out of reach. And now, in the middle of her brother's crisis, he was telling her what she had dreamed of hearing. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Daniel." He didn't let her pull back. "You were always there, Claire. Quiet, steady, stronger than you thought. I kept my distance because you were Ethan's sister, and I didn't want to risk the bond we all shared. But staying away didn't make me forget. It only made me regret." Her heart pounded so hard she thought he might hear it. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let the years of longing melt into this moment, but fear held her back. This wasn't the time for romance, she told herself. Ethan's crisis still hung over them. Yet she couldn't deny the rush of warmth his words gave her. She shook her head lightly. Daniel, this is a lot. My brother needs help, not love confessions. His smile was soft, tinged with sadness. I know, but I had to say it. And you need to know this isn't just a business deal for me. When I pay that debt tonight, I want you to understand it's because I can't stand to see you carry this weight alone. The cafe grew quieter around them, the soft music filling the silence between words. Claire felt the world narrow down to the man sitting across from her, to the way he looked at her as if she had always mattered. Still, she tried to hold on to reason. Daniel, if I let you do this, I'll owe you more than I can ever repay. His answer came quickly, steady and certain. Then repay me by being honest with yourself. Stop pretending you don't feel what I feel. That's all I'll ever ask. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. The weight of her brother's trouble mixed with the pull of emotions she had buried too long. She wanted to argue, to insist she couldn't open that door again. But his words had broken something inside her, a wall she thought would never fall. She stared at him, trying to find her voice. But before she could speak, Daniel glanced at his watch and stood. Come with me. I'll take care of Ethan's debt tonight. After that, we can talk about everything else. Claire rose slowly, her legs unsteady. She followed him out of the cafe into the cold night air, the city buzzing quietly around them. The weight of what was about to happen pressed on her. But alongside it was something else, hope, fragile and terrifying as they walked side by side. She realized this night wasn't just about saving her brother. It was about facing the past, the feelings she had hidden, and the man who had just reopened every locked door in her heart. And though the fear of what came next gripped her, she couldn't stop the thought that perhaps Ethan's mistake had brought her exactly where she was meant to be. The night deepened as Daniel drove through the quiet streets, the city lights stretching across the windshield like a river of gold. Claire sat beside him, her hands clasped in her lap, her heart racing faster than the car itself. She had imagined many moments with Daniel in the past, but never like this, never on a night filled with fear, urgency, and a death that threatened her brother's life as he knew it. They arrived at the cafe earlier, but now Daniel had taken her somewhere else's office downtown. The building was tall, glass reflecting the sky, and inside it carried the silence of importance. Claire followed him through the lobby, her heels clicking against the floor, until they stepped into a private room where papers and computers glowed. Daniel pulled out his phone, made a short call, and spoke in a calm, commanding tone she barely recognized. He didn't argue, didn't question. He simply arranged the transfer of money as though it were nothing. For Claire, the amount was impossible. For him, it seemed like just another decision in a long line of business moves. She stood by the window, looking down at the city while he worked. She felt small in that moment, not because of him, but because of how easily he carried the weight she had struggled with all night. Relief washed over her, but it was tangled with something else, guilt that she had needed him, and awe at the man he had become. When Daniel ended the call, he turned toward her. "It's done," he said. "Ethan won't have to worry anymore." Her breath left her in a rush, her shoulders sagging. "You don't know what this means to me," she whispered. "You saved him." But Daniel shook his head. "I didn't do it for Ethan alone. I told you that already." The words made her chest tighten. She turned to face him fully, her eyes searching his. "Daniel, why now? After all this time?" He moved closer, his voice low but steady. "Because I was a coward before. I told myself it was wrong to feel the way I did about you, that it would ruin my friendship with your brother. So I walked away. But tonight, when you called, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I realized that if I kept silent, I'd lose you forever." Her throat went dry. The honesty in his eyes was overwhelming. And every memory she had of him came rushing back, the way he used to laugh with Ethan, the quiet conversations they once shared, the secret looks she thought he never noticed. She had loved him for so long, and now he was laying the truth bare between them. She tried to steady herself. "Daniel, this changes everything. I can't just forget the past. You were Ethan's best friend. I was just his little sister." Gaze softened. "You were never just anything, Claire. You've always been more." The words landed like a spark in her heart, igniting something she had buried too deep. She wanted to deny it, to push him away. But she couldn't. The pull between them was too strong, and standing there with him, the years of distance felt like they had never existed. Silence filled the room, heavy but tender. Finally, Claire whispered, "I don't know if I can do this." Daniel stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his presence. "Then let me show you," he said. "Not with promises, not with words, but with time. Let me be the man I should have been years ago." Her heart pounded. She wanted to believe him, but fear lingered. And what about Ethan? What if he finds out you helped him because of me? Daniel's eyes didn't waver. "Then he'll know the truth, that I cared too much to let you carry this alone. He might be angry, but I'll take that. I've taken worse. What I can't take is losing this chance with you." Claire's breath caught. For so long she had dreamed of hearing something like this, yet she had never believed it could happen. And now, here it was, real, undeniable. Written in every word he spoke. She looked away, out the window again, the lights of the city blurring as her eyes filled. It wasn't just about Ethan's debt anymore. It was about a deeper debt, one carved into her heart. One that had waited years for an answer. When Daniel reached out and gently touched her hand, she didn't pull away. His hand was steady, grounding, and in that moment, she realized she was no longer the quiet girl hiding her feelings. She was a woman standing in front of the man she had always wanted. Finally, brave enough to admit it to herself, she whispered, "You make it sound so simple." Daniel gave a small smile. "It doesn't have to be complicated. We start here tonight. No more running from it." The weight in her chest eased just a little. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. Ethan's pride. The past they had ignored. The fears she still carried, but for the first time in years. She felt hope. The moment hung between them. Fragile yet powerful. Then Daniel stepped back, letting her breathe, giving her space. "It's late," he said softly. "I'll take you home. We can talk more when you're ready." She nodded. Her voice caught somewhere between relief and longing. As they left the office, Claire felt the night air wrap around her like a promise. The debt had been paid, but what lingered between them was more than money. It was something that had always been there, waiting for its moment. As Daniel held the door open for her and walked beside her toward the car, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. This night had changed everything. Ethan's debt was gone. But her heart had found something it had been waiting years to claim, and deep inside. She understood some debts are measured in dollars, but others are measured in love. And tonight both had finally been repaid. The drive back to Claire's apartment was quiet, but not empty. The silence carried weight, like two people holding words too heavy to spill. The city passed by in streaks of yellow and white, but Claire barely noticed. Her thoughts were on Ethan. Safe now because of Daniel, and on Daniel himself, who had stepped back into her life in the most unexpected way. When they pulled up outside her building, Daniel cut the engine but didn't move right away. He sat with one hand on the wheel, his profile lit softly by the glow of the street lamp. Claire turned to him, waiting, unsure of what would come next. Finally, he looked at her. "Ethan will be fine. The debt's cleared. You don't need to worry anymore." She exhaled, the relief hitting her all over again. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice soft but certain. Daniel shook his head. "You don't owe me thanks, Claire. You never did. What I wanted was to be here for you. That's all." Her heart tightened. She should have felt only gratitude, but there was more, something deeper, something fragile but alive. The feeling she had buried for years now rose too fast to ignore. She tried to keep her voice steady. "Why me, Daniel? Why now?" His gaze didn't falter. "Because I've spent years pretending you were just Ethan's sister, someone I needed to protect from a distance. But the truth is, I never stopped thinking about you. Tonight reminded me what I already knew. I can't keep pushing this away." The words pressed against her chest like a tide. She wanted to resist, to protect herself, but she couldn't deny what his honesty stirred in her. For so long, she had carried a quiet love for him, a love she believed he would never return. And now, here he was, offering her a truth she had once dreamed of, but never expected to hear. She lowered her eyes, afraid of what he might see in them. You say that like it's simple. But it's not. Ethan doesn't know. He might not understand. Daniel leaned closer, his voice calm but firm. Ethan is my friend and I respect him. But this isn't about him, it's about us. About what's been there all along, even if we tried to hide it. Her breath caught. She wanted to argue, to insist they couldn't cross this line, but she couldn't deny what she felt in that moment. The connection was real, undeniable, and stronger than her fear. Claire finally met his eyes, her voice barely a whisper. And what if I say I'm scared? He gave a faint smile, one filled with patience. Then I'll wait. I'm not asking for promises tonight. I'm asking for a chance. That's all. The sincerity in his tone broke through her defenses. He wasn't trying to push her, wasn't demanding answers. He was simply offering her something rare: time, patience, and a love that felt steady, not rushed. She felt the weight in her chest ease just a little. Maybe it didn't have to be decided tonight. Maybe it could grow slowly, like something rediscovered rather than forced. The cold air seeped in as she opened the door, stepping out onto the quiet street. Daniel followed, walking her to the entrance of her building. The night around them was still, filled with the hum of distant traffic and the faint glow of city lights dotted the door. She turned to him. For a long moment they stood in silence, the air heavy with everything unspoken. Finally, she said, "You didn't just pay off a debt tonight, Daniel. You reminded me that some things never really fade." His eyes softened. "And maybe it's time we stopped pretending they did." She nodded, her heart caught between fear and hope. This wasn't a simple ending. It was the start of something uncertain but real. A door opening after years of being closed. He didn't reach for her, didn't push. He simply gave her a look that said more than words ever could, a look that promised patience, care, and something far stronger than she had expected. Claire whispered goodnight and slipped inside, her chest tight but lighter than it had been in years. As she leaned against the closed door, she felt tears sting her eyes. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming rush of everything she had carried alone until now. Ethan's debt was gone. Her brother was safe. But the night had given her more than relief, had given her a chance to face feelings she thought she had lost forever. Upstairs in the quiet of her apartment, she replayed every moment: the cafe, Daniel's steady voice, the way he had looked at her with a truth she could no longer deny. She realized that what had begun as a night of fear had ended as the start of something new. Love had waited in the shadows of her life for years. It's patient and unspoken. And now, at last, it had stepped back into the light. As Claire curled onto her couch, the city lights glowing faintly through her window, she whispered to herself, almost as if to believe it fully, sometimes the debts we pay are not just about money. They're about love long overdue. And with that thought, she closed her eyes, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. For the first time in a long time, felt both free and full, her heart no longer weighed down, but open, waiting, and alive.